I do want to introduce Toke Moeller, who is here in Nova Scotia from Denmark. Toke is one of the co-creators of Art of Hosting, and he's going to share his knowledge and experience. He's been in Nova Scotia for over a week, I believe. He's been speaking quite a lot on the topic of Art of Hosting, meeting with the practitioners in the communities here. That's been described as a bit of a homecoming for a lot of people who are practitioners of Art of Hosting. And Tim Mary is here. He's a senior practitioner, Art of Hosting, who's worked internationally as well. And I should say Toke has probably covered every continent, if not close to them in the world. And Tim was graciously hosting us at the South Shore Hub in Mahone Bay. And maybe I'll ask Tim to introduce himself, the space, and if there's anything I missed, Toke, in terms of your biography, if you'd like to introduce yourself as well, and then we'll get right into it. Thank you.
Brilliant. Let's go then. So we're in the Hub South Shore, which is just a co-working space with about 38 to 40 members, all small progressive businesses running out of here. And it's just rooted in the question we asked when we did our first community engagement about this place was, do you love working for yourself, but you don't want to work alone? And so that bunch of people turned up, and about 5 years now we've been running. So if you're ever in Mahone Bay, we're located right underneath the Mug and Anchor pub, and there's a fantastic little co-working space for anyone who's kind of entrepreneurially minded and wants to support good work happening in Nova Scotia. So it's good to come to you from the Hub South Shore. Should we just get going? Sure. Super. So in my experience of doing this work, it seems to me that, often I'm turning up and we're going in and we're, seeking to build greater participation, greater engagement, get people more involved so decisions can be impacted by the people who are going to be impacted by them, And often it amazes me how radical it seems to people. That like, oh yeah, of course we should be engaging people in our decisions. We should be building greater participation, And on the other side of it, it's incredibly common sense, right? How could we design a piece of infrastructure or a meeting or a strategy without understanding the needs of the people we're really engaging, So there seems, and I would say that's really true here in Nova Scotia. There is a pretty constant call for some kind of radical, significant change, yet a huge distrust of anything that feels superficial or bling, So there's this real pattern of both, radical. We need something significant in terms of change, and we need something deeply common sense, right? It just appeals to us as humans. One of the principles at the Hub here is we will be fearlessly visionary and relentlessly practical, right? That is one of the core principles, family principles of the Hub. And so I just wanted, yes, in Nova Scotia, but I know that your work, in fact, our work takes us all over the world. And the pattern is bigger than just Nova Scotia, is my instinct. So what's your experience of this kind of like demand for something that is very simple, very ancient, very common sense, and at the same time, the demand for something that seems like a significant change, a significant shift? What do you see or feel going on?
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. I'll just start with that. Yeah, well, one thing is being radical. One thing is being commonsensical. But what's the purpose of it? Yeah. Radical for what? Collaborating for what? Leading for what? So I think I can't really make any sense of, because those are just attitudes, and some like to be modern and some prefer to be traditional, and that game has been dancing forever. But without looking at the bigger purpose of what's going on in our world right now, I think it's very easy to, decide on a too small purpose of what is right and wrong between the modern and the traditional, the down to earth and the practicality, and then being visionary and daring to look at radical changes that needs to happen. And I think I look at the world, it's polarizing now, and it is scaring many of us because some of the polarization begins to have the look like fascism, and we know when fascism begins to become powerful in the world, a lot of people suffer. That's part of the history.
Recent history.
recent history.
Yeah.
And so to me, it's not, you know, I don't know how long we feel whether we are from Nova Scotia or Denmark or Greenland or Africa or, you know, anywhere. We are one human species.
Yeah.
We are one family, and we may have different colors and different belief systems and different ways of making our living. But the basic condition of being alive on the planet right now is the same. And to me, the whole thing about art of hosting and what kind of leadership we need is really in response to that kind of situation. That either we begin to learn how to cooperate, collaborate, co-create, engage with each other to find the solutions that we need to build a better future for ourselves and our children and the rest of the planet.
Right.
Or we begin to go towards fascism and separation and, you know, we being right and other people being wrong, and begin to justify that we have the right to be violent or to even create wars. I mean, human species have a history of going there. And to me, the you know, before we started this, you know, the other side of the question, please share what you think art of hosting is. You know, to me, it's not participation or not participation, but it's to what end. You know, the question I have been in, I think, through my whole life is what is really the leadership we need? How do we need to lead ourselves and each other in order to live peacefully together?
Right.
And if conversation and working together and engaging voices that are not being heard can help us to come together and live more peacefully and kindly on earth, then that, you know, is a good way of leading and a good way of cooperating.
And that takes enormous courage, right? Because, like, you know, as things get more crazy and increasingly uncertain and change gets faster and conflict increases, environmental stress, social unrest, like there's an easy tendency to want to like hunker down, keep things together. I'm just going to look after my region. I'm going to look after my town. I'm going to look after my department. I'm going to look after my family. I'm just going to duck for cover and hope this blows over, right? And so I think what you're talking about, you know, is that we've got to get beyond regionalism. We've got to get beyond turf wars, and we actually have to be courageous enough to step out and engage beyond what we know, because that's the only way we're going to get to figure things out. We're not going to solve the complexity of challenges we're faced with by ducking for cover and hunkering down. In fact, that isolationism is in many ways the root of a lot of the challenges we're facing right now.
Exactly. Right. And you could see then, if you begin to look at that burning platform,
yeah,
which is getting real, you know, all the younger generation, the more they get to know it, the more scared they get.
Yeah.
You get scared, you begin to withdraw.
Yeah.
If you live more together in trust and respect and caring for each other and the planet, then fear dissolves. Right. And we come into a place where we can begin to care for things. And in that light, then common sense or radical?
Yeah.
Both.
Actually, the radical is common sense right now.
Yes. And the common sense is radical to superficiality. You know, we need to learn how to draw on those things that have worked for generations. 200,000 years the human species has traveled. It's not a long time, but for us it's a long time.
Yeah.
What have we learned? What is the wisdom of how we know inherently that we can work together? It's build on facts. Look at what's there in front of you. Work together with whoever is there.
Right.
And lead in ways that allows this collaboration to surface. Yeah. And this, I think, in a way of saying art of hosting, many people think it's methodology, and whether they like the methodology or don't like the methodology. That's not the issue. It's like, can you host artfully and skillfully as a way of leading, as a way of being together, where learning, collaboration, trust, and consciousness, being awake together, grows. Right. That to me is a litmus test of good or bad leadership. If what you're doing is controlling people out of their learning, people begin to fear each other, people begin to, you know, get bad habits about being violent if they are threatened, instead of looking at themselves and a little bit of self-knowledge. That to me is the common sense through the ages, and not to just, there's a difference between common sense and being not ready to move with the dynamicness of life itself.
Yeah. And so, and that for me, like, I remember in the 17 years ago, at least when I turned up and started joining these conversations with you and others, like, it was like, why are we calling this hosting as opposed to facilitation? And there was this sense that facilitation often has an idea already existing with the outcome, and we're trying to facilitate a group to get there. And what was different for me and what excited me as a young person when I came into this field of work was that this was about creating the conditions for people to discover their own solutions together and then own them and move on them, And that was a fundamentally different approach to leadership, to problem solving that I'd experienced. It doesn't matter whether it was at school, whether it was with my encounters with the justice system, whether it was, at university. This invitation to, the type of leadership is about creating the conditions for people to step up, right? And I think there's something exciting for me. Like, there's so many different practice grounds now. I find myself working in organizations, in government organizations, corporate organizations, within community, with young people, with seniors, with municipalities. There's so many different places that we're practicing. But one of the things that's always kind of struck me about you and your work is that you've always talked about your mum as a practitioner. That we can talk about this as something we go do in our organizations or we go do somewhere else. But I think it's always been inspiring for me to hear you talk about, who was your primary trainer, right? And what are some of the primary practice grounds? And could you speak a little bit about that? Because I think there's something quite simple about this. Is about just as much about how we turn up in our families as it is about what we do in the world.
Please interject. We have a few questions about the sound fading in and out. I'm not sure, Tim. I'm sorry to interrupt. If there's anything we can do to...
Well, I can try changing the... No. We want people to hear it.
No worries.
All right, maybe this is better. So just let Jeff know if this improves, because this should bring the microphone a little closer to me and Toke. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, primary practice grounds, I think, for me was my family, was my friendship group, and it was just witnessing. In the case of my mom, she loved to learn. And I think people who love to learn, they love to create spaces and hold spaces in which learning they have. And she was not afraid of doing it and asking questions and creating a critical space which she then go. And then me and my mates would be invited by her to be in conversation about what we were reading, what was happening in the world, what was happening in the school. And suddenly we were equals. We were 5 people sitting around the table having conversation. And more than that, we were learning how to listen to what other people's views were. And to me, it's like, please, whoever wants to be interested in practicing out of open or understanding what it is, it's very not complicated. We all know how to do this. In some places, it has been garnered well. I'm lucky to be living in such a family and having friends with whom we watered our learning muscle. And in other places, you have to fight for those conditions. But whatever it is definitely something that grows from, if you think of it, that the purpose is to create learning between people, and in that learning space, we can figure out that we innovate naturally, we connect naturally. We don't have to, make everything so complicated, and then we make ourselves the problem solvers. That then comes like Superman to save all the problems. What if we could stop, being problematic? And so this is where, the practice is both personal, how do you show up when you want to collaborate?
Right.
How do you show up when you want to be in to make a difference in the world? But it's not a matter of just always wanting to change everybody else and all the things you don't like and think that could be better. But what are we willing to awaken to in ourselves? I won't even call it change in ourselves, because I think originally when we were little kids, we have those qualities of poetry. You know, in Cote d'Ivoire, where I in 2013 with a couple of colleagues around the pre-Civil War, we bring in people together. We invited to create conversations for.
We do have an issue with the sound again, Tim. It's staticky at the moment. Let's hear on that.
Oh no, I don't have it. I have it on the microphone on my computer now. I took it off the conference cam.
Anything that can be done in the conference cam, like
I can put it back onto that one. Is that what you'd like me to do?
I think that's what people are indicating is that it was worse now.
Okay. So I put it back onto the other. We got this one because we thought it would be a better microphone than one on my computer. So see how that goes, folks.
If you could let me know, listeners, how that is, we'll work to get it as good as we can, as quickly as we can.
And if we tape this and people can see it afterwards, you know, maybe there will not be those problems when you listen to it again. So.
And thanks for letting us know, right?
Okay, we've got positive now.
Better?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
So here's the fun thing for me. And is that the scones and tea and your mates around the table with your mum, you know, created some kind of practice in you and among your friends that led you to be able to call what is now, I mean, it's an international movement, the art of hosting. You know, you were one of the critical founders of the art of hosting. So that is thousands of practitioners all over the world. You know, we have trainings happening every single month on all continents. Those are just the public trainings. We can't even track the amount of stuff that's happening in strategic contexts in all kinds of different levels and regions and sectors. So it's really quite significant that like 17, 18, maybe 20 years ago, this art of hosting thing was born. And we're really clear in Nova Scotia here. You know, we've been getting reports since the 1930s telling us exactly what the danger is with our, you know, our economy is teeter-totter. It's on the brink. Are we going to make it? Are we not going to make it? We are losing people. They're leaving, right? We're losing our young people. Our young people are leaving. So it's clear that, you know, reports are not going to solve our problems. And in fact, strategies are not going to solve our problems. But what would it be like to be able to build a movement where we're not fighting from one area to another to see who can get precedence, but we're actually building a movement across our region that could begin to start lifting and moving us forward, making this attractive and compelling place, not just to stay, but for other people to come, right? And so just, you know, what are your thoughts about movement building, right? Like, how do we build movements across regions? And in terms of the art of hosting across the world, like, what have you learned about movement building?
Hi. You know, I was thinking as you were speaking, what's the difference between a movement with a purpose to fight the old,
Right.
and on the other side of the river, or maybe another approach is begin to practice being peaceful, finding a natural harmony in yourself, practicing togetherness, practicing working together for a common good purpose that's so big that we can all be in it. Right? The problem with movements is they set one purpose that is to serve what that movement thinks is right.
And then they just continue the paradigm of us and them.
And then you have another movement who does the same. So I think we will not try to be a movement.
No.
You know, if you look at this, this is not a whole big happy community of people who are completely all thinking the same. No. I think that if I would look at what is it that connects art of hosting practitioners with each other, and that this naturally unfolds. And I could try and point to 2 or 3 or 4 things.
Right.
One is that we say and practice hosting conversation and works that matter. Hosting yourself, hosting each other, hosting your work is a practice.
Yeah.
It's not a belief.
Right.
It's not an idea.
No.
It's not, you know, an analysis.
Or a theory or a model.
Yes.
It's something you do.
It is a practice.
Yeah.
And so we are practitioners of practicing, and by practicing, you keep learning. You know, first time you're going to be trying to play a guitar, it sounds awful. But 20 years later, if you have skill and you have been working together with people who know to do that,
right,
you could maybe make music that inspires people. So
yeah.
It's exactly the same thing. Hosting is a practice. Harvesting is a practice.
Right.
Being kind is a practice.
Yeah.
What we practice, we will become.
Right.
So that's one thing. Practice.
And,
Second is,
so just that, and that's fundamental. That's like not a technical skill, right? This isn't like you can just go get the manual and be like, okay, now I've got the technical skills. This is more. Chris Corrigan calls it artisanal. You know, where like, you know, you're learning by doing, but you're also having to follow not just the circumstance you're in and the needs you encounter, but also your own inner certainty. Where those two things meet, then you're really practicing.
and you could say that it's practicing practice, but then there's practice that we're inviting each person to do.
Yeah.
You know, show up, be awake.
Right.
Whether you practice running, meditation, or yoga, whatever
Right.
your personal practice is, we are not saying there's one right personal practice.
Right.
Otherwise, you're not allowed a hosting practitioner according to the sect.
The dogma.
No, but certainly it's a good thing to know how to be awake when you want to collaborate, when you want to lead, and you want to influence. It's
Right.
positive.
And so one of the questions I often get around hosting is like, how do you do quality control? Right? How?
But let me stay with,
All right, go on.
you know, so what is practice? Why did it unfold like this?
Yeah.
So practitioner, learning by practice, and practice both personally together and for the world.
Yeah.
The other thing is we never try to control it. It's not a, you know, it's not a like a certification kind of thing. We are saying anybody knows how to host. And that skill can then be honed, and hosting has in its DNA a kindness to it. It's an attitude of respect. So we have not just gone out to host everybody else and host all the problems and become the great problem solvers, but we are hosting the spaces in which other people and we with them can show up and become wiser together. And wisdom is about how you live life in a good way. Mm. We have not made it a strong financial thing. So we are not, it's not a business. You know, hosting is not a business. Though if you get good at it, people might hire you and you can make an honorable living working with it. But we have not said, come together and we will make the greatest facilitation business in the world. We have said this is for the common good. This is for peace on earth between people, because we are destroying the world. We really are. Yeah. Our lack of collaboration and our lack of daring to see that all we want is peaceful coexistence and well-being for everybody. Yeah. We say, no, it's the purpose is this and our purpose is this is so different. Yes, they are small. So we are aiming for a higher purpose. Yeah. And then we have said, you know, learn this, get good at it, and train others. Yeah. And I think
give it away.
And if you look at keep giving it away. And you know, I love to learn from nature. I learn more from sitting and watching a Nova Scotian river flow beautifully about leadership and about flow and about being humane. And by more than anything, learn how to move. Every moment that you want to be a citizen, engaged with others, can you move with the natural flow of that moment? What is needed now? What could enhance this situation? It's a matter of being awake, and then the paths are shown. I think if we would show up in the parliaments and the municipality leadership and dare introduce silence for 5 minutes every morning so that we would be awake. And then we could look at, okay, how could we really serve the many instead of just a few today? And slowly beginning to move by practice and being conscious. We didn't have to do so many strategic plans. We didn't have to spend so much money analyzing the problem and then ending up being part of the problem because we get scared by what we are analyzing. But what about the strength to move through and say, okay, yes, it has been problematic, but we have survived for so many years. So I think there is a calling upon the spark of life, which is making us come alive every day. It's not a spiritual movement, but being inspired, inspire more inspiration, and inspired people can work well together. Inspired people can have a surplus to think on behalf of the grandchildren of the world, and not just my own identity. Yeah, which I think we are getting lost in superficial identity rather than getting lost in the beauty of being a human being together with other human beings. Right. And so you could say that's the philosophy, but it's actually, we're trying to practice the philosophy, but rather say, and beginning to enjoy it. Yeah, that's right. The friendship between people. I just have been working, in India the last 2 years. This is going into the jails. There are practitioners of art hosting and the flow game, and happening amongst prisoners with a life sentence. Yeah. Because we're seeing them as human beings. It's not like because you did a mistake when you were young and you did that crime, you are not a human being. You're still a human being. Right. And so, to me, it's really pretty simple. And then and I don't want to try to own something that cannot be owned. Right. This is why I say this is an ancient movement. When has human beings not worked together?
Or turn to each other when things got difficult. Like that's why we survived, because you ask for help.
And I am, next week or this week, the two of us who were part of the beginning of this in Denmark going to be introducing the art of hosting to maybe 250 professional facilitators in Moscow in Russia.
Monica and Jan, right?
Yeah. And by taking the other thing, I think is part of our principle. We don't try to sell it. I don't market. People. What could you say? The marketing strategy that I know works is where there is honey, bees will come. If you're real, if you're name, if you can do what you say you can do, and you can work together with people, and we can create something that is more than the sum of the parts, then and you're fun to be with, you will be invited. And so it's amazing how this has gone, not just across the world, but into all different contexts. There's no person like right now. There are 5 young officers in the Danish army who are using art of hosting to educate officers and hold conversations that matter in the army, Danish armed forces, to be, how can we be most humane as human beings and as soldiers and officers in an army to protect our people. And this kind of situation has not happened in the ages before. So peace is slowly, the consciousness that we could live peacefully and that is not impossible is growing. Right. And I think with that kind of, so I will challenge that it is not about participation. Yeah. When participation can help us be more human, let's participate. When contribution, each person's contribution can be looked at and be offered and be received and benefit the common good. Good. When individual leadership needs to be there, somebody to cut through and say, now we have been running around with the same problem in this province for the last 2 generations and nobody has dared said, oops, could we make a fresh start? Then let's say thank you for somebody who just instigate with some audacity, you know.
This is not a participatory leadership takeover. No. But this is about balancing. Right? Because if all we have is command and control as a response to a circumstance that's completely beyond our control, we need something else to equip us. So, so there's something about personal practice. There's this higher level purpose. What is it that really brings? What is the inspiration that draws people in? Right? Not a report or a strategy or a methodology or a toolkit, but there's something that is drawing people in, and the quality of relationships. I think you keep pointing to between people, right? Like if we're looking at building a movement, people have to really start building a quality of support and care for each other, right?
All right, but let's go there a little bit.
Please.
How much more time do we have?
We have another 35 minutes, or 25 minutes.
Yeah, and we'll leave a little bit of time for questions.
Sure. So I would like to approach this. I'm seeing like it's like a square, and in each corner there is an important principle and practice. Principles that are not practiced, to me, is worthless.
That's right.
The practices that doesn't have a essence to it and some consciousness to it, you know, doesn't go very far. But yeah. You say that in each of them, the yin and the yang of practice and principle is an important piece. But if you don't know to what end you're doing it, so the other, you know, end of the triangle is common good purpose for all. You know, but the intention to want to serve all, even in the smallest thing you do, is an honorable purpose that anybody can serve, no matter who they are. Then in the third is relationships. Now carefully here, because you know, participation, we are the same practitioners, you know, we want to be the good deed doers, we want to, you know, so to me, good relationship is not enough. Respectful relationship. Is there a relationship? What is relationships made of? It's made of trust. There's no trust, there's no relationship. Trust doesn't, if I trust you or you trust me, doesn't, you know, there's nothing to do with what political ideas you tend to, or, you know, how you would like to name your God. Right. But can I see the common unity, the common life in you? Can you see it in me? And to me, that's where common unity and respect, it's more profound, it's more simple than having an idea or a religious belief that now we all have to be one big happy community. Right? It won't happen. No. Because opinions gets in the way. It's not like you can get rid of your opinions, but you can focus on something else, which is your life, what you know, what you have learned in life. What you can practice is what you know. Not what you know, right, but can you practice what you know? And then, you know, that's when you rise to become a humane being. So that's in the third. And then certainly in the fourth is, remind me my Viking language, but get some shit done. You know, you need to manifest something. It's really, really important that we produce some results based upon clear purpose that we have agreed on. We want to serve the common good. We want to have principle and practice our principles. We want to be in respectful relationship, even with those we disagree with. We might disagree about smaller things, but we are in agreement about being humane, and we would all like our children and grandchildren to be careful. So why couldn't we extend that courtesy to the Muslim family over there, if you were a Christian, or to the guys who live in Borneo and you happen to live in New York City? Who are we to think that we have the right to decide who's worthy to be on this planet or not? So And so, and then comes to it, can we manifest little bit by little bit, not try to change the whole Nova Scotia or the whole world, but what can we do each day that moves us towards spending our money more wisely? Inviting our children to be educated, both in learning about life and in the skills that we need, in living together, so that nobody has to. We will never be all the same amount of money in our bank account, but at least that we all could have enough, and that those who have too much could share it some more, and those who have too little can be willing to receive it if it's given to them in dignity, and not they have to go fight for it. So I think there's something about the interconnectedness between relationship, purpose, practice, and manifesting. Not to be afraid of prototyping or trying out. What if we would scratch? I mean, you were talking about municipality, things getting stopped by municipality governments. It's not like anybody's emailing there. It's just like the system itself has become too bureaucratic, too unconscious, and too small purposes. Yeah. What if we could say, we did that experiment. It was part of the start of the art of hosting back in Denmark. We asked ourselves if we were the founding fathers of the Danish democracy. We did it on the 175th birthday of the Danish Constitution. And we spent 2 days in conversation and being together and rowing in canoes on where I live in Jutland. And then we asked ourselves, so what would we, what is the purpose if we were the founding fathers and mothers of Denmark, and what would be the principles, and what would be the practices? And then we harvested it, and then we sent it out in the Danish national press as a possibility of, Danish democratic constitution version 2.0. It was so audacious to do. And we had not asked anybody permission. We just started, me and another guy decided we would do this. Others said they would like to come, and then we hosted that kind of conversation. And it felt like, why couldn't we do what's called a bird phoenix?
Oh yeah, out of the ashes.
Yeah, so let's stop. Take a breath. Look at what's not working. Don't try to fix it. I think art of hosting and all of these thousands of movements are called, it's not like, no, can we harmonize and really begin? Do we dare take a new start? Do we dare ask for help? Right. If we are stuck, do we keep fighting the opposition, or do we go and ask a wise man from Africa, how did you do it, govern your village with 7,000 people without a ruling committee for the last 5,000 years? I've talked to some of those chiefs. I've worked with some of those chiefs in West Africa. They have missed it. And the political guys are fighting, on top of the country. But who leads the well-being of the villages? The traditional chiefs. And this is, I think, the big mistake that when the white, Europeans became colonizers. Sorry, you photocopied the Vikings. I apologize. But when we came around, we did not listen. I think we could become hunters for wisdom, for clarity, for consciousness, for kindness, and then take a nap. Everybody take a nap. Everybody needs to take a nap in the afternoon.
That was one of the early principles of the art of hosting. Do you remember? It was
the art of taking a nap.
Periods of rest contribute to the quality of our work. I remember cracking that one. Remember that? We were designing this. We actually called it the Big Gathering in England. Anyway, look, mate. So when I was 24 years old, I was moving from Germany over to the Netherlands, and I was down in Slovenia, and I got picked up by you, by Meg Wheatley and Bob Stilton. These three mentors kind of picked me up and supported me as a young man step into this line of work, and not even work, this practice that has become the thing that not only makes me feel fulfilled and helpful in the world, but also helps me pay my bills, right? And I'm seeing it happen again. So I was just up in Halifax yesterday, and I'm coming to the house to pick you up, and you're around the table, and you've just got there's a cohort of young people who you're now training again, and I know that cohort this time is kind of international, and I think more organized than I've seen you do it before. Like I knew Mariana Knut and Ante Glavas and myself and Sira Khan and Zoe Nicholson. Like I knew all those folks are out there, but this time you're really organizing the kind of young people you're working with. And in Nova Scotia, this is a big issue, right? We're losing our young people. Just Lunenburg County, where I live, we lose 800 people a year. We gain 600. Of the 800 that leave, the majority are young. Of the 600 that come, the majority are old. So if we're seeking to lead change in Nova Scotia, we have to figure out a way of engaging our young people in that process. So they want to be here, and they want to be part of it, and they're enjoying being part of it, right? And it's not enough just to create representative places on our boards if we're not willing to shift the culture of the board, for example. But I feel a significant part of your work and your journey and the gift you've given me just in my life has been this attention you pay to supporting young people step into their work and into the world in a way that it's pretty audacious, you know? And so just any insight you might have about how we in Nova Scotia or any of the other places that are working to lead change that are on the webinar, but like how do we really integrate and fold our young people into the kind of changes we want to see in the world? How does that happen in a way that works in your experience? What have you seen? What have you learned? Not only from your relationships with people like me, but the kind of places you've gone and what you've done.
I want to.
And people can hear you better when you're leaned in. Like
All right.
Oh, good. Lean in, Toke.
I'll lean in, folks. I think what I've heard myself say through this first 20, 40 minutes are some of those principles. Practice, purpose, relationship, and the action then, if you use that quadrant for how I have been worked with and now how I have learned to work with or support or the action been to create the conditions for whoever asks me, I never go hunt.
No.
Yeah, no, they're not hired. They are individuals like you have, like other people have come and said, can we be learning together, or can you be my mentor? And I say I'm a different kind of mentor. I don't just talk with people. You want to learn with me? Come into the dojo. The dojo is both what I'm training, but also, I said to James in Australia, he said, ask me in Denmark in an after hosting training, a young, brilliant master student, he said, I want to learn with you. And he said, I want to learn the art of money and how to be centered no matter what happens. And I said, okay, we can do that together and we'll see where it goes.
Right.
And then I said, where are you next month? Can you come to Brisbane? It's like Denmark and Australia. No, he is Australian.
He lives in Europe.
Yeah, he lives in Europe. And I said, you have to get there. Your own money, whatever. But if you can get there, I'll ask my mates to put you up and you'll be part of the apprentice and the hosting team. And he said, I'll be there. So it's a strong thing.
Yeah.
I think I want to introduce this word. Some of you know I love. It's the word dojo. Do is a life practice. Practice for life, whether it's martial art or the art of making and offering tea so people become more conscious in the ceremony. Do, you can be a father and that can be a do. You want to excel in the art of being a father. Dojo is where you practice your life. Life practice. And I've tried through the last, probably the art of hosting to me is also a dojo. Trainings. It's can we come in and learn how to be human when we are acting, when we are working, not just when we are having a holiday? Can we be even more human when we make decisions? You know, things that will influence other people's lives and the animals and rivers and all of that. So the what I'm doing and what is being done through me, because I had never strategized for it. It just, you know, moment, like I said before, I'm leading myself by seeing the clarity that comes. And then of course I can think ahead, but I don't think too much ahead, because emergence and newness can grow out of it. You begin to live with it now.
Right, the plan gets in the
And
way,
then,
right?
yeah, you know, don't you think the universe, the nature itself, is having a strategic plan made by somebody else who's not part of it? It's like ridiculous. I mean, there will be a time where we will laugh of the arrogance of the human species. So I offer audacity, I offer space, and as soon as somebody I can see, you know, I'm looking, I see the potential of a person 20 years ahead. But it's not what you will do or what examine, but I can feel the potential. Like my mom could see it in me, like Kido Sensei could see it in me. You see through the life force, and then you host that force. Don't control it, don't own it, fucking don't get in the way, and don't make people disciples. You know, we each have our own path to walk. It's uniquely unique. And then let's focus on doing the work that's needed in the world. So the fourth, one is so the action in the fourth quadrant is action of creating places where we can grow the sensei in us, or the leader in us, or the humane person in us, and then throw it in as quickly as possible. Like tomorrow, we are starting the groundwork training out there.
Yeah.
Some of the people who thought they were just going to come and hear me do all the teachings, you realized yesterday, I'm just going to do a few of the teachings. They're going to do some of the teachings. And Bronna is going to do the warrior of the high practice training, and I'll be at her back. Yeah. So how do you learn? By doing it. Yeah. And be doing it in a place of consciousness, and then being awake for the next thing.
Yeah. I just remember, I mean, a couple of quick stories. I remember the first, like, I'm absolutely trembling coming up to you in Slovenia, being like, oh, you know, would you be my mentor? And you kind of thought about it, and then you were like, no. And then I was like, oh God. And then I came back to you later and I was like, no, seriously, man, like, would you be my mentor? And you're like, absolutely not. But if you wanted to learn together and be on that journey, I'm in for it. You know, and it just set a precedent straight away that we're going to be learning as much from each other as we went through it, and it changed the whole dynamic of the relationship, you know, to where we are now. You know, so I think that's quite significant.
Then just one story, because I'm thinking of the context of Nova Scotia and some of the conversation I've been in with some of you, and you know that some of these councils where a lot of men my age are sitting well seated, it's comfy, they have their, you know, good income, they have their power, and they're trembling because they know the power it has to dwindle, or they have to begin to give it away. And some of them welcome it and host themselves, and you know, and some of them will fight it.
Yeah.
And we see the administration in America is a, you know, scary but quite clear example of incredible, powerful people who are now, by hook or crook, have gotten political power. So, how do we live in a world like this with dignity? How do we help each generation come? So I think to those of you who are my generation and are in power, begin to host your own transition. Make your resources available to grow the leadership, the consciousness, the stature the quality of the next generations. And if you can be a little bit examples of being generous and not being greedy, you can be kinder and not being an over-controlling dictator based in fear. Good. We don't need movements for change. We need to become human and give space to each other. For the younger generation, begin to host the elder leaders. If you fight them, they will fight back if they're scared. But can we, like Marianne hosted me to become an elder at the age of 48, she said, will you be in the Wisdom Council of Pioneers of Change as our elder? I was 48 years old, and I said, it's like, oh mom, or oh sensei, or you know, my teacher. But she hosted me. Yeah. You have done the same. Yeah. You hosted me in my autumn. And it can be beautiful. It's like when you know in your heart that we are all equally worthy. And that's, you don't forget that. No. Then everything changes. And I think that what we need, so the example I would give is a very courageous municipality in Sweden called Helsingborg. I worked with. I was became the mentor of the leader of the leadership the program of training the municipal leaders. We co-created a circumvent, I don't know if it's the right word, but of young leaders to become the mentors of all the directors of departments of the different services of this municipality. So I was finding 50 leaders of your caliber, but the quality was that they were standing on their own feet. They had made their votes, not by killing a mafiosi, but by you had accomplished something successful in the world.
Yeah, you got something under your belt, right?
Yeah. So we picked these 15. Then the municipality leaders who were 20 years older and who had power and everything were offered by the leadership, the Ingela, who was the former leader like that, and me, then we offered a weekend where they could come and matchmake, not for sex, but for working together. Good. And they, I mean, there's all kinds of strange matchmaking going on these days. So anyway.
That is to be clear.
So yeah, just to be clear. They picked, and the young people said, what are the criteria? They should find out the criteria under which they would play that role. Mm. One was that we are respected as leaders. We are not, pets, that we are paid. So these guys are bought in, and we are paid as mentors, and that we will be involved in something useful because we have no time to wait. 10 of them found match, 5 was too much for them. But the 10, some of those relationships stayed for 2 years. Mm. The purpose of it was, in the initial intention from me and Ingela and the mayor who was backing us, was that the director of any of these departments had a samtal partner, a conversation partner, to check in the younger generation before they went out and did something. Because that generation see the world completely different than my generation, because of the evolution of generation to generation. So I don't know what could happen here, but I think stop fighting each other, for God's sake. Change, yes. Well, change, will it give us more peace? Then it's good change. If it's just change because you want to get rid of people you don't like. I don't want to, I'm not in the change business. I'm in life business. This is like, how can we learn how to live naturally and care for it? And it has never been clearer to me in these last 6 months. That's the gift of Trump. Putin, Erdogan, and whatever that guy called is over in Korea, who are the 5 most dangerous humans to humanity, in my opinion, at this stage in the world. And other people in the shadows we don't know. But it's few. Most people are generous. Most people are not lost in their own power. So what if the way forward is not to fight, but to move? It's not like, and if fight is needed, I would probably, like my father, have joined the resistance in the Second World War when the Nazism became too much. And I would have been a warrior. I think today, I don't know if I would have cowered it out, but I'm not saying not fight. But are we fighting for the right purpose? And how are we fighting? Is it with consciousness, with clarity, with kindness? It's very radical to be kind to somebody that wants to fight. So I feel that we need places to practice our life practices. We need to practice it together. We need people who can create those places, which is why I'm working with that cohort, and so that I don't need to be in these dojos. That 2 or 3 people get together who have got their life together and are honest and have love in their heart. They can create beautiful spaces for school kids. Where I think there will come a time where the governments and the parliaments of the world will be hosted to have a good process. We are lost in content and power games. We don't take to the process.
Right.
And I think there is another power that wants to rise now. The power of being human. The power of life moving. Do we dare join it? Because it's already there. It's not like there's nothing we have to invent. So an invitation, I think, lastly, just to say, be aware of who you are. Practice to be awake and keep practicing to learn more by practice. What if study could become practice and learning by practice?
Yeah, and I've never come to you with an idea that you cut down. Right? In fact, you even have.
I might have that.
You've definitely traveled along the road with me on some of my worst ideas and picked up the pieces as we've gone and learned with me. But I think that's been really important. You're talking about audacity, and we talked about audacity before we came here. Well, how do we create the conditions for audacity? We don't shut people down when they turn up with ideas. We follow them, we go with them, we work with them. And that's been my consistent experience of how you related to me, especially as a young man, where I never once felt like a silly young boy, no matter how crazy my ideas were, right? So there's something about that.
There's a difference between ideas and who you are. I hope that I've cut together with you some stupid ideas. You, mine,
oh yeah,
and me.
Yeah, but talking it through.
I don't like a person to cut my humanity down.
Yeah.
And I try to practice not to do that to anybody. That to me is respect.
Yeah.
But all the many ideas, I think there's too much focus on ideas.
No.
What about purposes?
Right.
What about what needs to happen? Not, the 1,000, among the 1,000 ideas, there might be one purpose that would be worth manifesting.
That's right.
So can we be in that sharpness and discernment to see what is the idea, or what is the impetus, or what is the audacious act that would really bring well-being, peace, prosperity, that would nourish life. Let's pick those and then put our full force on it.
And not waste our time on anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Just briefly to say thank you to both Tim and Toke for their time and for the great insight they brought today. You had indicated that there would be maybe the opportunity to answer if there were a few questions that came up in the Q&A.
Yeah.
We could run a few minutes late, but I just wanted to say that to those that did attend, thank you very much for your time. Please watch for a recording of this in the coming days, and also take a few moments for the Q&A, rather the survey, just to get a little feedback on this as you log out. And Elizabeth, I think you can leave the screen on so Toke and Tim could answer a few questions.
Yeah, so we'll just stay maybe 10 more minutes.
Yeah.
And if there's any questions folks want to ask or reflections they might have that could spark a bit more conversation, we're open to it. Right?
Sure. Good.
Perfect. Thank you. There's one there.
Okay, I think I've got them up on the screen. So there's a couple here talking. So what might be some ways to initiate the article posting? How do you know when you have it right? What does that feel like? Can you provide a real life example and recommended further reading? You want to pick one of those?
Yeah. What was the first one?
What might be some ways to initiate the article posting?
Well, begin to realize that you are already hosting, and turn off the volume. Do it more consciously. You're not initiating a movement, you're creating a space where things can grow. If you want to build capacity, which is a good way to start when you have started, but start first yourself. If you want to build more capacity so you can be together with other practitioners practicing and letting the collective practice grow some usefulness, then it's a good thing. It's been in many places. We have, since it has to start, so you can call for help to create an art of hosting training, or sometimes it's best is to, show that it works before you train. So if there's a few people around that can help you create a strategic or meaningful conversation with a community or a group, do it well, harvest it well, and create some results, and then honey will be there and people will come. In Montreal, Sam Slade had come to the lake.
Yeah, we did not hosting in Chocolate Lake. That's right.
And she, she called when they waited 4 years to be practiced. They tried it out 4 years. They didn't have an art of hosting training, and then when they called it in 2013. 117 people were in the room because it was not allowed to be more, and they had a waiting list of 100 people. So half a year later, we did the training. So it was a blasting. Right. Another ingredient that's important is of course, is it needed, your self-practice, but then ask some of the practitioners who have, what we call people practitioners who can steward the training, who are practicing, who are putting it into action in the world, and who also know how to run trainings and who are willing to have apprentices.
Right.
And usually we have in Montreal, we were 3 here. I think we used 2 or 3 if it's possible, and then it can grow from there. And then have fun with it.
So there is an art of hosting coming up on PEI. Great. In April. So if you go to artofhostingns.ca, there's a training coming up in April if you're in the region and you want to dig more into this and begin to explore it some more. Maybe that's time for one more.
And there's
question.
one in the valley, I think. Some of the
that's right, coming up in May, right? And then
what was the other question there? How do you know when you have it right? What does it feel like? I'll take first an example of Aikido, which is a Susan. So
this is Susan.
So if somebody attacks you, then the Aikido move to get out of the attack looks like this. Energy has shifted. now I could give her the kiss, or I could throw her on the floor. So when you get it right, is when you hit the natural flow of it, and it feels easy. So how do you get your work right, or how do you get yourself right, or how do you get the conversation right? Less is more. Don't try to be a hero. Trust your own capability. Don't work alone, work with others. Ask for help. It's a beautiful practice and principle that the New Chandler's tribe practices since many years in Vancouver Island. We did some work and learning together. They call it ape, and it means it is kind to ask for help. A person who cannot ask for help cannot be trusted. So this is delicate work. We are intervening, we are awakening life, we are trying to solve some of the problematics, some of the unfairness, bring peace with this conflict, however whatever the context is. If you want to have real life examples, we have very few minutes here, but there is on the, and this maybe goes to the other question, where can you read? If you go to the artofhosting.org website, there is enormous amount of stuff, and there's even a link there to stories of application in all kinds of places. I don't know how lately has been updated, but I think there is, you can go, it's called the story map, Art of Hosting story.
Oh, this is artofhosting.org.
Yeah, but there's a link to another website. That's right. It's called Art of Hosting story map.
Yeah.
And you can read stories, and there are more. I would just say, if it was not working, it wouldn't have lasted this long.
Or kept growing.
And being invited into governments, army, prisons, societal, grassroots groups, collaborative groups of all kinds. I think we are over the hump of saying this work is like, is it done from the heart, without pretense, with common sense, with the ancient strength, and then sincerely, and having fun with it. Life is not made for problems.
And we're beyond anecdotal evidence now. So, we just last week we were together with researchers from across North America. So there's a whole bunch of scholarly documentation that has tracked the impact of the art of hosting, participatory approaches within organizations, within societal initiatives. So it's there. And then I think the only other thing I would say, and I think it's what you're pointing to, is like, when do you know it's right? It's like I can feel it. And the more I practice, the more I've learned to become attuned to knowing when it feels right. And like every time I've ignored that, it's come around and got me. Do you know what I mean? When I've taken the piece of work, or I've chosen to go and host a conversation, it ticks all the boxes logically in my head, but my gut is like, no, don't do it. And then it's come around and got me eventually, So I think there's something about the practice actually trains you to know when it feels right. And of course you can assess the circumstances you're in, but I actually think there's a large part of this work that is there's some kind of inner compass in me actually, that the more I practice, the more I get to know, and the more it begins to guide my decision making as well. As well as my analysis, right? But the combination of those two things help me decide where and when and with who I choose to do work in the world, right?
I would say one other thing, I'd like to suggest redefining results. There's measurable results, like you can have a conversation and create a business plan or a vision plan for a community. So there's intangible results. That's building of trust. That's a building of connections between different parties with different things to offer. And both are equally important. And many people we play this game that everything that we can see is results, and things, we just call it the soft things and we make fun of it. But it's actually the hardest stuff, or the best stuff. Because people who trust each other and can work together, they can do 1,000 projects. people can't work together and create nice papers as individuals. It's not imbued with the collective intelligence. It's not imbued with life wisdom. It's not imbued with the will to go and manifest that plan. No, that's for other people. We make the plan. Now we're paid. Now it's up to people who didn't even make the plan. It's like, yes, I will not make more fun of how, but I think there's something about daring to understand that when we can work together, we have something. It's gold. It's actually practicing peace. Even if two people become more peaceful, you're gifting the human species.
Yeah. Okay. So plenty more information at artofhosting.org, both in terms of models, practices, connections to practitioners, the events that are coming up in this region in PEI, in April in the Valley, in May. You can also see events up on that website all over the world. And then there's also, if you go to workdonebettertogether.com, there's also some webinar series that are available where people can kind of find their way into this work and explore it a little bit more. So there's lots of avenues to find people and to find this work and continue it. And Toke, thank you so much, mate, for making the time to come on and do this. And it's always a pleasure.
And on behalf of Engage Nova Scotia, thank you, Tim and Toke, for taking the time, and thanks to everyone that attended. Please watch for the video and future webinars coming up at engagenovascotia.ca. Live from Mahone Bay, the South Shore Hub. Thank you.
Thanks, folks. Safe journey.